Let me start this video by saying I did not go to Errol Spence Jr.'s gym in Dallas. Part of the reason is that the same address I had for the gym is shared by, boy, I swear, not an ambulance, not a fire engine. As soon as I start my video, all of a sudden, and the old iPhone went off. But anyway, text from my sister who used to watch the videos, but probably hasn't looked at one in 2 years. Anyway, the address I had, and then when I used the GPS of the rental car, it told me Irving, Texas. And it's the wrong address. It's the same street and the same number, but one is in Irving and one is in Dallas. So I called a number I had like about 45 times, because it was a good 40 minutes from where I was, and the timing of my trip, like I had stuff on my agenda I wanted to get done. So I didn't go to the gym. If somebody had picked up the phone, I would have went to the gym. That's okay. I'll be back in Dallas in less than a year, if not sooner. So we're gonna get it done. So I went to Dallas mainly for Eagles versus Cowboys weekend. And so before I start talking a little bit boxing, I just want to show just a few short clips from the visit to Dallas or Arlington, where the stadiums are, and AT&T Stadium and Ford Field, and where the Texas Rangers play also. So just show some real short video clips, and then we could talk a little boxing, because that's what this is, a boxing channel, right? So check out these videos and I'll be back. All right, the Fight Journal Boxing. We're in Big D, Dallas, Texas. Check out those Eagles versus the Cowboys. This is my room. Nice room. The Hyatt, Dallas Fort Worth Airport. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. Decent room. Okay. Nice little bathroom. Small shower. All right. So, I'm gonna try to get to the Errol Spence Jr.'s gym. See if I can get some T-shirts from my man Jordan. Hopefully they have them and they don't have to order them. But all right. Catch you when we get back to the East Coast. All right, live from Dallas, right near the Fort Worth, DFW, Dallas Fort Worth Airport. So, about to head out and take a tour of the AT&T Stadium and see what that's about. FightJournal.com. We're here, baby. AT&T Stadium. Eagles versus Cowboys weekend. Inside the stadium. Eagles Cowboys weekend. There's the star. There's the big, well, we're on the side of the scoreboard. This is actually the day before the game. We're taking a tour. And once again, something that looks nothing like it does
on TV. They let me in the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders locker room. Check it out. Cowboys locker room. See Brandon Knight, Marcus Lawrence. We are in AT&T Stadium. Cowboys locker room. Zeke Elliott. There's the Dallas Star leading to the locker room, baby. Maybe the classiest and best dressed coach in NFL history. Tom Landry, one of my favorite coaches. Thomas Wade Landry. All right, we at Eagles versus Cowboys weekend. We're gonna try to get to Errol Spence Jr.'s gym, see if any business is going on. Catch you later. Sunday night, are you ready for some football? AT&T Stadium. Fight during the box over here. You see all the people, Eagles fans, Cowboys fans, walking to the stadium. Let's go! Go! The baseball coach, home of those Texas Rangers. Soon to be their old park. They're building a new park.
All right, so there you have it. As far as Dallas is concerned, if you watch the news, you know that there was some bad weather, and I got caught up in a tornado. Actually, two tornadoes. The regular Texas tornado that happened, and then that tornado called the Dallas Cowboys, as they trounced my Eagles big time. And I'm an Eagles fan, but but Tony Dorsett, by far, there's not even a number two, is my favorite player all time. Even so, I was there rooting for the Birds, and they got smashed. And with the schedule they have, I don't even want to get into it. Give a shout out to my man Varden Roberts, and he well, I'll talk about him in a second. But so as we were leaving the game and getting ridiculed because we had our colors on, we saw lightning, and then as we walked to the rental car, it was windy, but we're not watching the news. We're there on a trip to see the game, so we had no clue about a tornado. And got to the rental car with my man Varden Roberts, V-Rob, and I had a ball with you over the weekend, bro, if you're listening. Got in the car, and I take him to his hotel, and still don't know that this is a tornado. We're just thinking, okay, it's windy. It still wasn't raining at that point. And then as I go to my hotel, it started raining. Still don't know what's going on. Go to my room, cut TV on, Still don't know what's going on. So I had to leave out the next morning early. So I tried to pack the big bag up and take it to the rental car, and then it's pouring down rain. I'm like, man. Still thinking it's just some wind and lightning and heavy rain. So I'm like, all right. So the guy said, well, just stay here. You can get to your car. It's rained like 3 times and stopped. So I stayed for about 10 minutes. It was pouring. So I went back to my room, and then it's like, oh, wow, a tornado. And half the power in Dallas went out. I was fortunate. No power outages. The satellite messed up, so the TV was out of whack. But I have this app where I can watch anything that's on live TV, so I was good. I stayed at the Hyatt Dallas Fort Worth. If I didn't say that in that short video, very nice. Love the lobby. Nice rooms. The room was cool. The place was decent. If you ever go and you stay at the Hyatt Dallas Fort Worth or any other hotel that's like on the airport grounds, meaning this was Love Field Airport, not Dallas Fort Worth. But that's where I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. I flew into Dallas Love Field. However, the hotel was Fort Worth. Make sure you validate your parking every time you leave out, because if you don't, it's like a $24 charge, and I don't think that's the max either. I think that's if you haven't validated within a certain amount of time. So, but if you validate your parking, it's no cost. So I'm going back and forth. So I must have validated like 6 or 7 times. So anyway, my buddy he stayed at the Holiday Inn Dallas Fort Worth. And his advice to you is to stay away from that hotel by all means. Take my word for it. Or at least don't get the room he had. And I don't know which room it was, but man, my gosh. I don't even want to get into it, but he won't be staying there again, ever. Why do I always get a flight where somebody behind me keeps hitting the back of my chair with their knees? I swear, I almost got into a fight, but the person behind me was very intimidating. So I started getting it into a bit of an argument, and then it got ugly. And I tell you what, she stood up, all 5'3" of her, and put me in my place. So I kept quiet for the rest of the trip. Anyway, let's talk about BETERBIEV versus GVOZDYK. Aldo Vergara. I owe you one. Is that I always ask, is that how you pronounce your name, Vergara? But you never respond to me. But I owe you one. I ran out of time and should have talked about it, but I was planning this trip, and so you're on my list. But let me talk about the aftermath real quick. Okay. I thought GVOZDYK would have won by decision, and he was on his way. He was on his way there at the time of the stoppage. However, after a couple of rounds, I was concerned. And what I remember is seeing before I left was GVOZDYK was extremely tense in there. Like almost like he was having an anxiety attack. throughout the fight. He just never loosened up in the fight. Even when he did well, his body language wasn't right. I mean, he didn't have the right distance to throw the jab, to come behind it with the right hand and then the left hook. He seemed out of range, and eventually he just started to be a little clumsy. I was shocked. I have a theory why, but I just was shocked at his technique just never seemed to be right. He was so tight and exerting way too much energy and just not, man, I didn't get it. And my theory is I sense he must have convinced himself, okay, I'm going to do this. I lost to this guy in the amateurs. That was years ago. I'm a much better fighter now. I'm going to do this. But somehow, some way, when that opening bell rung, I sense he had a flashback to the amateurs where BETERBIEV broke his nose and stopped him. And GVOZDYK, for all of his anxiety, was boxing well. He got sloppy at times, as I said, but he didn't sit down on anything, and BETERBIEV waited him out. In the round where GVOZDYK hurt BETERBIEV twice, he needed to turn it up a notch and go for it. Instead, he let BETERBIEV off the hook, and it was on after that. The reason why you go for it at that point is because BETERBIEV started to impose himself on GVOZDYK. GVOZDYK knew this, and even though a firefight is what BETERBIEV wanted, you have to go get him. You got to go get him there at that point. Just like with Stevenson, when GVOZDYK fought Stevenson. I mean, if you get caught in between punches, so be it. But the tide was turning, and GVOZDYK had his shot to take momentum back, and he didn't. He should have tried to drop him at that point. And he came back to the corner, and Atlas is like, "You heard him! You heard him! You heard him right there!" He should have went for it. Excuse me. BETERBIEV began to do. You know what? Hold on. Let me stop right here, because if I don't say this, I'm not saying this as an excuse, but Gennady Golovkin, a couple of times when I saw him in New York fight, he got sick. He caught a cold. Like something about he would train in Big Bear at the altitude or whatever, and then he would come east, and it's a change in weather, and it's a change in whatever. So when I went to Vegas the weekend of May, that must have been like May 4th or so, May 5th, 4th or 5th. When I came back, I went to Virginia to see Julian Williams and Jared Hurd, which was May 11th or 12th, I can't remember. And I caught a cold. I just had sore throat, sniffing, just all kind of stuff going on. And so when I went to Dallas, the 2 days I was there, it was like high 80s during the day. And I come back here, and I'm telling you, man, sore throat, just trying to shake it. And I'm not saying that happens to Golovkin, but a couple of times he said, well, he hasn't said it, but his team, Tommy Loeffler and whoever, said he's sick. And this time it was Eddie Hearn saying, yeah, he didn't want to say anything about it. And sure enough, when he fought Gabriel Rosado, he was under the weather. And it might be the third time when he came east. I'm like, man, look, maybe you need to bring your training camp east. But anyway, Beterbiev started doing some subtle things defensively that a lot of people miss. And he used those things to set up his offense brilliantly. You got to give him credit. His body shots took the wind out of GVOZDYK, and it was a wrap. That part everyone saw, but I'm telling you, he's almost like a Sol Alvarez type thing, where it's just little subtle movements defensively to not only make you miss something that you thought would be easy to hit, but then to set up what he's gonna his return volley, so to speak. So one thing, controversial statement, but nevertheless, one thing Beterbiev does that Andy Ruiz also does is hit behind the head. If you watch a few of Ruiz's knockouts, and they are available on YouTube, you see the opponents complain about the knockdown or knockout being from a punch behind the head. If I find, because I watched a couple of videos and the guy got hit, and he gets up shaking, he looks at the ref, and he's like pointing to his head like, yo, he hit me. And it's dangerous. And if you look at the Joshua fight, there was an equilibrium shot, but then there was borderline stuff which went to the rear of the head or awfully close. But he knows how to throw it. And I'm telling you, he gets his wins off of that stuff. And it could be perceived a certain way depending on who was watching the fight. And Beterbiev does the same things. And we found out later on, Beterbiev's rabbit punches in this one caused damage, as GVOZDYK spent not one but a couple of days in the hospital. And when they ran their test, the doctors actually thought they saw something at first, but fortunately they determined it wasn't bleeding on the brain. But however, it was a concussion from Beterbiev's shots behind the head. And boxing has got to catch it and punish the people who do it. I'm telling you, when you see a lot of guys messed up years later, you're like, wow, he got dropped that one time, and he got stopped that one time, but he never really took. It's the one time. And another boxer passed away. He landed hard on the back of his head. But there's some sparring partners coming out now, and other fighters who were in the same gym as Gerald McClellan, saying that Gerald passed out before the Nigel Benn fight. Gerald passed out in the gym one time, and it was like nobody really hit him hard. It was like, what's going on? So what I'm saying is, a lot of times we say two things that bother me, but that's just me, because I get bothered by little stuff sometimes. One is that we say a person died from punches in a particular fight. Well, on the surface, that's what it appears to be. But sometimes those guys are damaged beforehand. You see these football players with CTE down the line, but they had CTE maybe 20 games before their final game. You understand? So if they take a hard hit in their final game, we attribute it to that. Slurred speech, what have you. But no, there was 20 games before that where the real damage was done. So sometimes, because we believe we're doctors and we hear the announcers say it, excuse me, these guys get hit, and it was because of that fight. Well, it could be because of a combination of fights, and then that fight was the cherry on top. So, So, and then another thing they say is such and such died as a result of the injuries. Well, no. A lot of times the families will take them off of life support or what have you. There have been people who were on life support who wound up living. And when I say living, I mean they're not in a vegetative state. Like they're not a vegetable, as they call it. They are talking and walking and living their life. They just come out of the coma after years. Some people weeks, months. So while we can say someone died as a result of injury sustained in the ring, if the family makes the decision to take that person off life support, then that's kind of like how it should be stated. If you're into chakra healing and you're into telepathy and so on and so forth, you can understand that people can talk to other people who the doctors say that's all we could do. The family says we don't want that person to be in pain, but that person, that medium, that chakra healer, that whatever you want to call it, will go to that person's room and talk to them in a way where it's like almost telepathic and say, are you in pain? And they may say yes or no. Do you want to die? And they'll say no, I want to live. And so the chakra healer can kind of like open up their kidneys to get them back to functioning correctly, and opening up their heart and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get too deep. I don't want to scare anybody. I got about 5 listeners, and I don't want to have one by the end of this video. So anyway, but boxing has to catch this stuff and punish people who do it. Some of those who do it know how to throw that punch, and it's part of their strategy, that behind the punch thing to get you on Queer Street. Okay? And these blind ass referees won't see it. So someone has to do a better job. BETERBIEV landed some punches behind the head. Enough that this kid had to stay at the hospital for a few days. Concussions are nothing to mess with, and that's how the sport rolls sometimes. You put somebody in the hospital one fight, and the next fight, you are in the hospital. It's crazy, right? GVOZDYK put Adonis Stevenson in a critical condition. Adonis pulled through, and then the next fight, he's in the hospital, and they thought they saw a brain bleed. So, but boxing keeps on rolling. It's crazy though, right? Boxing keeps on rolling. We got 3 cards coming up this Saturday. We got Erickson Lubin taking on Nathaniel Gallimore. Okay, that's not a bad fight for Lubin. And Gallimore, if he's on, should push Erickson Lubin. I say if he's on because it's a late replacement fight. So you don't know if Gallimore is just coming for the money, or if Lubin can adjust to the change in opponent. So you just don't know either of those things. Gallimore is better than Lubin's original opponent, Terrell Gausha. So that'll be interesting. Also on that card is the Easter Bunny, Robert Easter Jr., moving up in weight to take on Adrian Granados. Once again, another fight, tough to call this one. Just like the first fight, is like there's some factors before you can actually, if you knew ahead of time, if you were an insider, then it would be easier to call. And I'm speaking about the Lubin Gallimore, but this one's tough to call too, because we don't know what Easter Jr. can do at the new weight class. He moved up. And then the last time we saw Granados, he got stopped by Danny Garcia. So you just don't know where either one of these guys are. But that's why they fight the fights, and it's intriguing. I mean, it's interesting. You know, you get to see what the real deal is. Also on that card is Omar Douglas, or should I say Omar Tough Luck Douglas, because he can't catch a break in close fights, it seems. I tell you. So that's the premiere show. Is that Fox Sports 1? I think it's Fox Sports 1. Then you have Shakur Stevenson fighting for a world title in his lucky number 13th fight. And Stevenson battles the hard-hitting and undefeated Joet Gonzalez, who is 23-0, 14 knockouts, and who is not coming to play. These guys do not like each other, especially Gonzalez towards Stevenson. Do not like each other. And rumor has it, I'm not sure about this, maybe somebody could tell me, and if so, man, you gotta love the drama. And see, this guy who does the little what do you call it, the breakdowns for ESPN, what is his name? What is his name? Excuse me. Not Joe Tessitore, not Bernardo Osuna. Well, anyway, the guy, Mark Kriegel, that's his name. He always does these Larry Merchant type thought summarizations of, well, here's what I think, and such. Well, if this story is true, I'd love to see him go off the map a little bit and bring us some entertainment. Rumor has it, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that Shakur Stevenson, his girlfriend, is actually Joet Gonzalez's sister. And if so, then I can see where the hate comes from. But I'm hoping if that's if that's true, I'm hoping they bring it up. So this should be a good fight also. Just like I'm expecting the two that I mentioned earlier on Fox, I think it's Fox Sports 1, to be good. As we'll see how Shakur Stevenson handles the pressure from Gonzalez. Shakur Stevenson is he's always been this, well, he's never had punching power. And then I think as he got bigger and is tried to decide on a division, he's kind of coming forward and walking guys down. It almost reminds me of Timothy Bradley Jr., where neither one of these guys is like a hard hitter, but they fight like a dog, man. I mean, Timothy Bradley was a dog. For a guy who just didn't have power, I mean, he would just mix it up. But trying to walk Gonzalez down like he has these other opponents, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how Shakur handles the pressure. That one's for the WBO World Featherweight title. And on the undercard, we got Joshua Greer Jr. versus Antonio Nieves. And that's a good matchup also. So that's ESPN Plus. And then we have Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. Okay, fighting for the WBA World Super Lightweight or Junior Welterweight title, and the IBF World Super Lightweight or Junior Welterweight title. So make sure you understand that it's the WBA Super world super lightweight. Boy, I tell you. It's a unification fight that is a must-see event. And also on that card is Derek Chisora versus replacement opponent David Price, who replaced Joseph Parker. And also on that bill is Ricky Burns versus Lee Selby. And what do they have left? I mean, Burns is old, and Selby is a small man moving up. So, I'm not sure how that's going to play. Back to Errol Spence Jr. Errol Spence Jr. I have to mention this. When I went to Dallas and start looking at, now this was right before I went to Dallas, he released a message on one of his social media pages. He said, "No broken bones. I'm a savage." Listen, I'm not the biggest Errol Spence Jr. fan, so take what I say with a grain of salt and pepper. The kid has always been 100% wrapped up in himself. I've seen him at a couple of fights at Barclays Center, stoned. He and Adrian Broner, stoned. He has a drinking problem, and I hope he gets it fixed. Channels want to talk around things. He has a drinking issue. I hope he gets it fixed. The accident he was in should have been a wake-up call. But I'm a savage? Come on, guy. If that car had a roof and it flipped like that, we'd probably be visiting his gravesite. If someone was out walking at that time, they most likely would have been killed. This should be as humbling an experience as possible. But you're a savage. Okay. Prior to that, I thought Errol Spence Jr. was a bit classless at the post-fight press conference with Sean Porter. Dude, you won a split decision. He was carrying it at the presser like he destroyed Sean, and he kind of talked down on Sean a bit. And I hope he does a 180 with his life, or, well, okay, let's move on. Salida Promotions sent me a press release last week announcing Claressa Shields was the 2019 Individual Sportswoman of the Year. Talk about bad timing. All right, we have Sergey Kovalev versus Sol Alvarez a week after the aforementioned fights this weekend, and that's on DAZN. Then 5 days later, on November 7th, we get the Naoya Inoue against Nonito Donaire in the World Boxing Super Series final. Now, that's an IBF and WBA bantamweight unification. That's on DAZN. Then a week later, on November 12th, we have Jamel Herring versus Lamont Roach Jr., ESPN Plus. The same night, I don't know who these internet guys are fighting in LA, but Devin Haney is supposed to be on the undercard. That's DAZN. November 23rd, Wilder versus Ortiz 2 on Fox pay-per-view. Another PBC pay-per-view. That's like 8 or 9 in like 14 months or so. December 7th is Ruiz versus Joshua 2. That's DAZN. Same night, Jamal Charlo versus Dennis Hogan. That's Showtime. December 14th is Terrence Crawford versus Agidius. Excuse me, Agidius. Kavalauskas, and that's on regular ESPN. Agidius Kavalauskas, the Green Machine. And no, it's not the Green Machine. What's his nickname? I don't remember. Anyway, and that same day, Marius Briedis versus Junior Dorticos, or Dorticos, and that's the zone. So good lineups, good fights to close out the year. It's been an okay year, been a decent year, and maybe 2020, just the magic of 2-0 and 2-0 will have guys say, I'm going to do big things in 2020. We'll see. So that's about it. I'm going to stop right here, get a little water and some cough drops, and try to get back at it 100%. So make sure you check the fights out this weekend, and we'll catch you later.